Night is a new sci-fi movie that I recently found while I was just scrolling through Amazon. I knew nothing about this movie going in. Just scrolling through Amazon looking for something to watch, and I was just kind of like, oh shit, that looks kind of new and it looks interesting and it's sci-fi? All right. Looks like I got something to talk about. This one is directed by first-time director Andrew Patterson, I believe, and it's a story that takes place in the 50s. It follows these two characters. One is named Faye, the other one is named Everett, I think. Faye is a switchboard operator for the phones, and Everett is a DJ, and so one night while they're doing their job, they both come across this strange signal. A signal that they can't explain, that they've never heard before, and so they both kind of put their heads together to try to investigate what this signal is, where it came from, what it could mean, you know, all the implications that come from a strange noise like this on the airwaves. The more they investigate this noise and this signal, the weirder their night gets, and a whole bunch of strange things start happening in this little town that they live in New Mexico. Out of the box, I can say that this movie definitely was made with a budget of what appears to be $5. That sounds a little bit disrespectful when I say it like that, but it's not. It's not $5. It's more like $3.50. The point is that I think this budget was made for basically like paper clips or $1. It was made for very, very small money, micro budget, shoestring, you know, all the terms that describe a small budget. I gotta say, I was really riveted, not only by the story and the characters and the directions that the director decided to push this thing, but also in the style and what they were able to get out of this budget. I was really impressed with the filmmaking on hand. For a movie that has a shoestring budget, this movie actually was much more beautiful and well shot than I thought it had any right to be. I really appreciated some of the techniques that they utilized where you could tell they were straining because of the budget and they couldn't do a bunch of the fancy stuff that a lot of other movies did. There is one shot where they kind of transition from a door of one place and they go all the way across town to this other place, and it's just kind of ingenious the way that they put that shot together. There are long takes in this movie and there's minimal locations, minimal cuts at times. Sometimes they'll film an entire scene. They have an actor or an actress and they have to have them doing something for a few minutes and they don't have the budget to add more scenes, add more filler in there. So it's the kind of movie where you feel like the budget does hold it down at times, but at the same time, by that same token, it's a movie where you feel like the budget being held down kind of helps the movie see its beauty. Like I said, this movie does take place in the 1950s, and anybody that knows anything about that era knows that for some people it was kind of like the golden era of serials and sci-fi. If anything, you can look at this movie as kind of like a love letter to old school sci-fi serials and shows and movies that came out back in the day. I mean, there are tons of references, Easter eggs, homages that are paid to some of the older sci-fi hits. You can definitely look at this movie and see some things that'll remind you of War of the Worlds or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. If you like Twilight Zone, if you like X-Files, this movie's definitely going to be right up your alley. The movie does have interesting characters and good performances, especially by the two leads. I can't remember their names. I'm pretty sure they haven't really been in a lot of movies before this movie. I also was very engrossed and engaged in the story. This is one of those movies that, like I said, because of the budget, they have to rely a lot on some of those expository dialogue type of scenes. You know, there's just a lot of scenes in this movie where characters are sitting and they're talking about something and the camera is just focused on them and it's steady and it doesn't pan, it doesn't cut, it doesn't shift, and you just have to watch that character doing something or saying something for a while. In most movies, that could probably come across as boring or tedious, but in this movie, you're just so engaged and engrossed in what the characters are saying, and you believe that whatever they're saying, it's going to lead to something more intriguing, something more mysterious, and that keeps you watching. And that's what I can say about this movie. It is sci-fi, extremely well executed because it keeps you interested and keeps you watching. There is definitely some subtext and some relevant themes that are woven into this movie. You pay attention, and if you're really hooked and engrossed in this thing and what it's trying to say, I feel like you'll appreciate the movie even more because of that. As far as issues with the movie, I do feel like it got off to kind of a slow start. Like the first 20 to 25 minutes, I wasn't sure if I was on board. It's really more of this long, extended, drawn-out sequence in the beginning of the movie that definitely does start to wear out its welcome after a few minutes. It's the way the characters were talking. Some of the dialogue was incredibly hard to follow. Some of it was like they were talking really fast, rushed and flustered and all over the place. And I was like, yo, I'm not from the 50s, obviously. I'm 27 years old. Anybody from the 50s maybe can answer me. Did people actually talk like this in the 50s? Did they talk this fast, this unfocused? I don't know. It's just kind of a odd thing to get used to hearing. Other than that, the only real issues I have with the movie are technical ones. I feel like the lighting was very dim in some spots. Could have been better. I also feel like the color grading was a little bit flawed in some scenes. You could definitely tell in some scenes there were these weird stains, almost like stains on the camera or color blotches in places that maybe they shouldn't have been. Kind of can forgive some of the technical flaws with the movie because you recognize that this movie was made on a shoestring budget and you realize that they utilized that budget to the best of their ability, and you got to give them a lot of credit for it. The Last of Night was a pretty interesting sci-fi movie that I'm going to put in the Silver Age for Man of Steel. Damn good movie, guys. In fact, I think I was very close to loving this thing. So tell me, have you seen it? And what did you think about it? Give me your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show. And as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.